Everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we are back again, and unfortunately we're going to have to report on a very sad recent news that footballing Argentinian legend Diego Maradona has sadly passed away at the age of 60 years old. He apparently suffered a heart attack at his Buenos Aires home, and this was following a recent surgery that he undertook in November 2020. He was widely regarded as one of the greatest ever footballers of the 20th century, and without that, one of the greatest footballers who captured the whole imagination of a generation of sports viewers and football fans growing up. And as from personal experience, I can validate for this, certainly growing up in the early to mid 1980s, Diego Maradona was for me the most standout footballer. He really did capture that essence of what we want in a game of beautiful, attacking, exciting footballers. And, you know, if we look at his overall physique and the look that he had that very short, stocky look about him. He was about 5'5", and we generally assume that short footballers will be at a certain disadvantage. But Maradona really was one of those footballers who showed us that despite your lack of height, you could still have a major impact on the game. And his actual lack of height helped him because he had that extreme low centre of gravity. So he had that lateral movement, and that helped him a lot in being able to twist and turn and dribble in between defenders and get in between tight little gaps and have that close control of the football. And that was always one of the biggest elements, I believe, is what really gave him that awe and that imagination amongst sport fans alike. And we always have our own perception of what we determine what is the perfect footballer. Is it the big strong defender? Is it the tall striding midfielder? Or is it the striker up front? And I think for many people, Diego Maradona in his prime represented that perfect fantasy of footballer. You know, when we always play the computer games as FIFA or Pro Evolution Soccer, we have that imagination of getting that player on the ball and dribbling past all the other defenders and then smashing it in the back of the net. And that's the idea, that was the kind of ideology that Diego Maradona represented. And throughout his career, you look at so many of his goals, it was really that skillful attacking footballer that me personally is the one that I envisage the most. I always loved the proactive footballer, the one who's able to take the ball, take the game by the scruff of the neck and really win the game single-handedly. And that's what Diego Maradona had, and that's what he represented so much in many people's eyes within football. And if we look at his early career, he started originally at Argentinos Juniors back in 1976. He was there for 5 years before joining Boca Juniors for a transfer fee of around 4 million. And shortly after that, he then joined Barcelona for a record fee of 5 million. And after a couple of seasons after that, he then joined Italian club Napoli for a record fee of 6.9 million. And many regard his spell at Napoli as one of his most successful throughout his club career. But despite his achievements at club level, it is, of course, internationally, playing for Argentina, that's where he gained his iconic status. When we mention this, we talk about, of course, the 1986 World Cup, leading the role as captain for the Argentinian team. He guided their way through to winning the World Cup against West Germany in the final, playing every one of Argentina's games. He scored 5 goals. En route to the final, of course, he scored 2 of the perhaps most infamous goals within the history of football, both of them against England in the quarterfinals. And if we look at both goals, it was really the contrast and the opposite ends of the spectrum of what we envisage about football, you know, the good side and the bad side. So the good side being the skill and the imagination and all the manoeuvring and everything that we love about the game and we want to see from the game from an attacking perspective, and then the other, exactly everything we hate about the game in terms of the manipulation and the cheating of the system and the game. And then, of course, we look at the first goal, perhaps still the most notorious goal that we've ever seen within football, the hand of God, when he scored with a header, so blatantly a handball, viewed in real time and replay, and it gains the title of Hand of God. And indeed, it had to be the Hand of God because it was so blatant in the way that he got away with it that only really God could help him in getting away with it. That was the infamy of that first goal, and in many ways, we could argue that he kind of amended or atoned for that with the second goal, which is regarded still as one of the best football goals, if not the best football goal of the 20th century. running almost the whole length of the other pitch to the other end, beating 5 English players, just dribbling around them all, seemingly untouchable, nobody able to get near him, and then just rounding the keeper and then putting it in. It's still, when you watch it back now, still one of the best goals you'll ever see within football, and it's been voted top of the list amongst many polls who have regarded it the goal of the century. And that is really, if you want to emphasise more on the positive aspects, that is really the quintessential moment of Maradona's career. And that was really when he captured the whole imagination of the sporting public. Now, he did captain Argentina to the 1990 World Cup final 4 years later, but they lost the final late on against West Germany, and he did return in the World Cup 4 years later, but unfortunately this represented the other side of his career within sport. And despite scoring, and he had that iconic celebration where he shouted up to the camera with his face, celebration, we do have to reflect on the darker side of his story. And we all know he had a long history of abuse in terms of drugs and alcohol, and this was brought to light especially when he failed a drug test at the 1994 World Cup for ephedrine doping, and this unfortunate incident really signalled the end of his international career. And there have been multiple incidences of alcohol abuse and drug abuse, and he had to battle numerous physical and weight issues, and had to undergo multiple surgeries throughout his footballing career and life. And this, of course, culminated in him undergoing the brain surgery back in November 2020, which was to treat a blood clot within his brain. So, for all the tributes and tribulations, I think we would be a bit naive to completely ignore the other side of his life and his career, that there were issues, there were inner demons that he had to battle within his life. But that's within all people in life, and a lot of sports people in general, that they do have personal issues. But in general, I think people, when they look back, they will remember much more of the positives, the great heights, the great achievements that he did achieve throughout career, and the iconic moments. And that's what I always believe in any sportsman. It's providing those iconic moments, those moments that will live long in the memory from generation to generation. I still believe now, even when today's generation of football fans, they will look back on the goals that he'd scored and still pay tribute and still acknowledge what an incredible and phenomenal footballer that he was. We look at Messi nowadays, well, Maradona was very much the Messi of his era. He was the Messi of his time, and the fact that he was able to achieve the pinnacle success of football, which is lifting the World Cup, that was always one of the major criteria for me as to what puts the truly legendary footballers at the echelon of the game. And Maradona definitely achieved that status. Captured the imagination, he captured the inspiration for many of us, as I mentioned before, growing up in the 80s, watching football. A truly iconic and amazing footballer, full of great skill and imagination, and he will be sadly missed at the top of the game, I'm sure. So those are my thoughts on the recent passing of Diego Maradona. Let me know what you think in the comments below about his career. What were the best aspects of his career? What other memorable goals do you remember for him growing up, if you did, within his own era? Or are you a current generation of a football fan? What is your opinion of Maradona? Do you indeed compare him to the likes of Messi and Ronaldo? And how do you think he matches up against those two at the moment? So let me know what you think in the comments below. That's it for now. Take care of yourselves. Reflecting on the sad passing on one of the most iconic footballers of our generation in Diego Maradona. Stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.